What seems harmless, but is incredibly dangerous. Walking along the train tracks. It's crazy how fast millions of pounds of freight can sneak up on you. Yes, you would think, how can you not hear that thing coming? But I run on a trail next to some train tracks and they can literally be right behind me before I hear them. A nurse. I had a teenage girl come from home economics class. She was sewing and had a pin between her lips. I mean, who hasn't done that? She sucked it in and it got lodged in her throat. While waiting for a scope she felt it dislodge and went deep into her main bronchial. She required major surgery. Had a young boy running with a toothbrush in his mouth. Got jammed way deep. Almost hit a major artery. The pin thing is one of my major fears. I'm in costume design and sew a lot and tend to hold pins in my mouth for just a minimum. Trying to unlearn that habit because of the horror stories. A human bite. I worked at a kindergarten and one kid was sometimes super sweet but sometimes really mean. He could switch in a second. While I was naming the coloring pages they were about to get, he walked up to me and bit me in the arm. Didn't think it was through, cause no blood, but it started swelling and getting red and the marks were clearly there. Went to the doc right after my shift. He explained a human bite is the second most dangerous bite there is. Got antibiotics but they didn't work. Arm just kept swelling and getting completely dark purple over 2 days. Doctor sent me to the hospital, where I got strong antibiotics. Basically everything in me was cleaned with that shit. Felt weak for months. If it didn't start working by that night have to come back and be hospitalized to get my underarm removed. I've shat some bricks there. Never thought a kid's bite could cause this. Luckily the swelling got less and the bruise stopped spreading, so I still have my arm. But that was very close. Edit, for the people who ask me if I punished the kid. His parents did that for me. My coworker reported the incident to the parents, and it was one of his last days there as they were moving. This was planned before he bit me. His parents were really sorry and a few days later, when I worked again, it was the last time I'd see him, and the parents brought him towards me because they wanted him to apologize. My arm was still fairly swollen and purple at that point, and he was absolutely shocked that he had been the cause of that. He apologized with tears in his eyes and actually hugged me. He promised me never to bite anyone again. Apparently he had bitten his family and even other children before. So far no one had gotten an infection apart from me, and I really think he meant that. Still had a good day with him, but was still pretty mad as I was scared my antibiotics stopped working or something. But now that I think back on him, he's not a bad kid. Just a troubled mind that didn't get the right treatment. But a scare not the less. Oil painting in a closed studio. What happens? The solvents in the paint evaporate over time and the fumes can become toxic or explosive if they aren't ventilated properly. Having a small snack before a medical procedure that requires anesthesia. Intubation can cause you to throw up your food and you can choke. I know of cases where doctors have kept children overnight before major surgery because they didn't trust the parents not to feed the child. Riptide and 4-foot waves. My friend drowned at the beach from a sneaker set. Terrible. https://www.youtube.com/watch v=PUALDTC_GIQA video on how to spot a rip current/riptide. Everyone who lives near an ocean/sea/bay/large lake/bigger than average pond or intends to visit one in the future should watch this and commit it to memory. Pool covers. It's like being wrapped in a bedsheet underwater. You cannot get free and you cannot scream for help. Once you're in, the only way to get out is to be incredibly lucky and get free, or have faith that someone saw or heard you fall in and hope that they get you in time. It's a lengthy, terrifying death that's completely avoidable. Fun fact, I actually almost died BC of this as a little kid at a pool party. Neighbor's dog noticed though and barked at the pool until someone came by. Kids picking flowers in the park. I'm a conservation technician for a county park system. At least once a year I have to stop parents with kids picking flowers off the trail because I see kids with either poison hemlock, one of the deadliest plants, if ingesting even a tiny amount, or wild parsnip, which can cause some serious permanent scarring, burns, and boils if the sap gets onto your skin and is exposed to sunlight. Don't let your kids pick or eat anything you aren't 100% sure of. My cousin walked through some tall grass behind her house when she was 11 and got burned by parsnips. She's in her 20s now and still has the scars on her legs from it. It's also the incident that inspired my username. There's that Peppa Pig episode about spiders, teaching UK kids that they are nice and friendly, and that episode is banned in Australia. So there you go. Here's my answer. Peppa Pig episodes. Mandolin slicer. Use the handguard or lose a thumb. Confined spaces. Above ground or worse. Below the surface. If you do urban exploration, caving, or anything like that, get a 4-gas detector. Clip it to your chest or belt and set the alarm to maximum. If it makes a sound, get the F out or you are going to die. To add to this, do not go in to rescue someone who has collapsed in a confined space. The number of times numerous people go in to rescue someone who has collapsed in a silo or something is crazy. Not checking/changing the tires on your car. Someone back me up on this. You can't just drive around with the same tires on forever. Eventually you'll end up doing donuts in the middle of a wet interstate because your back tires lost traction. Can confirm. Don't be afraid to pay for quality in sheets, shoes, and tires, anything that comes between you and the ground. Eating raw or undercooked kidney beans can make you very sick or even kill you. It only takes like 3 undercooked kidney beans to ruin your day. I once ate a full bowl of kidney beans that I didn't tea cook for long enough. And I also didn't tea let them swell in water beforehand as you should. I had the most insane puking, diarrhea, cold sweat, shivering fit toilet session ever. Cat scratch fever. Yeah, the song is pretty cool but that's about it. A stray cat scratched my dad one time and fucked his ass up. I got Bartonella as a teenager and was part of the 0.0001% who get it and have no symptoms other than literally going blind. Woke up one morning and couldn't see out of my right eye. Took a few months to diagnose. Got some fun steroid infusions and finally regained sight like 6 months later. Super fun as a 14-year-old. Is your sight affected nowadays? Walking off the boardwalks at Yellowstone. They have several signs pressing that, even though the ground may look normal in those areas, it could be really thin. I've seen people do it anyway. Looks safe. Last time I was at Yellowstone I was with friends at Old Faithful. Some guy had walked out onto the outcropping, which surrounds the geyser, which prompted quite the fit from a very unamused park ranger. My favorite Yellowstone story comes from a ranger. He had a family that thought bear spray was like mosquito spray and they sprayed themselves. A few ambulances later, and they learned the difference. Weirdly specific, but leaking hydraulic fluid from a small crack in a pressurized manifold. It doesn't shoot out like a gas would, instead looks like droplets. But if you put your thumb over it, it shoots toxic hydraulic fluid into your bloodstream. This is the concept of an injection injury. This can happen from any highly pressurized liquid like say a power washer. Basically, the high pressure shoots bacteria/toxin/foreign material deep into your tissues, which manifests in something much more serious than what appears to be just a deep cut, because the chance for serious infection, like amputation needing infection, is quite high. Usually opening up the entire wound and surgically cleaning all affected tissue out is proper treatment to prevent it from spreadings. There's a reason why the folks at r/power washing porn immediately chastise a poster who isn't wearing proper footwear. Small cuts you get when doing marine stuff. If you are diving/snorkeling at a coral reef and likely scrape yourself on some coral, for the love of God disinfect the living s out of that. No matter how mild it looks, the bacteria on coral will literally eat your leg off. Having small cuts on your hand while handling stuff like diatomaceous surf or sea sponges can cause tiny glass spines to enter your bloodstream and poke tiny holes in all those blood highways running through you. While this is a bit of a he said she said story, my professor apparently had a student hospitalized and died due to massive internal bleeding issues from handling this day after day. Texting coworkers after you've been drinking. I'm a sober alcoholic, And I used to make this mistake all the goddamn time. It was actually doing this that alerted my colleagues to the fact that I had a problem and led them to give me an intervention and direct me to get help. I was lucky enough to have colleagues that cared about my well-being over my performance at work. They are still my colleagues to this day, and I hope we will be a team for a long time. And yes, I perform a lot better at work without the sauce. Garage door springs. People don't realize just how much tension those things are actually under. Never repair a garage door yourself unless you know exactly what you're doing. The stored energy in them is enough to break bones and sever limbs. About 3 years ago, I had just snubbed out a smoke and went into my house from my garage. Just as I was about to close the door from the garage to the house, I heard a gunshot and a loud bang. I peeked around the house from inside and couldn't see anyone, no cars or bystanders. A few hours later, I went out for another smoke and half of my garage door spring was in the floor by the door, and the other half was on the other side of the garage. The kinetic potential those springs have is scary. If I'd been hit on the head, I very well could have died. So yeah, garage springs are nasty things. Over-the-counter medicines. Just because you can get something without a prescription does not mean it's safe in all cases or in high doses. Lint. Too much lint in a dryer can cause a fire. Gotta clean that stuff out on the regular. You also need to clean the vent that goes from the back of your dryer through your wall or ceiling to the outside. Mine is at least 30 feet long, and I cleaned it for the first time this month because my dryer was taking longer and longer to dry clothes. Turns out there was a clog that could have caused a fire, and I pulled out a couple trash bags full of lint. Our house was built in 2004, and by the look of it this might have been the first time anyone cleaned the vent. Serious question. How TF do you clean a 30-foot tube? I've never cleaned mine, and suddenly feel the need to clean it immediately. Jumping on a trampoline. Pushing someone's face into a cake as a joke. Some cakes have little wooden spikes inside to support the cake. Saw a post where a girl's face was gored by one of these. Plus it's also no fun most of the time. Or fun for like 30 seconds, and then you realize there's no cake for anyone because you smashed it all. Giving grapes to dogs. They're quite toxic. Ladders. Those things will F you up if you don't use them properly. Yeah, I know, I once fell off a 50-foot ladder. Hurt like a motherfucker. Fell onto a bucket. Lucky I was only on the second step. This comment was an emotional roller coaster. This thread. It's making me not wanna leave the house ever again. But there's so many things in your house that can kill you. Keep reading.